Welcome to day 9, session 2 of the virtual school on IP. The topic for this session is Internet of Things and Patents. Our speaker for this session is Dr. Arathi Ashok, who is an assistant professor in IPR at the School of Legal Studies, Cochin University of Science and Technology, Kochi, India. She has previously worked as a research officer with the MHRD chair on IPR established by the Government of India at Cochin University of Science and Technology and as an assistant professor at Faculty of IPR at Hidayatullah National Law University, Raipur. She holds an LLM with second rank from Cochin University of Science and Technology, Kochi, with specializations in intellectual property laws and labor laws from and LLB from MG University. She is the recipient of Dr. V. Kesavan Kutty Memorial Gold Medal and Certificate of Merit for securing second rank in LLM examination for the year 2010, Advocate at MM Cherian Memorial Gold Medal and Certificate of Merit for securing highest mark in labor law in LLM examination for the year 2010 and Certificate of Merit for excellent performance in LLM examination 2010 by Sarada Krishna Sadgamaya Foundation for Law and Justice. She has published articles with various national and international publishers, including Springer, and has acted as resource person and presented papers at various national and international venues, including Singapore Management University. She has completed various online courses from foreign universities and institutions. It is indeed an honor to have you with us in today's session, and we welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Queries related. Yes, ma'am.
Please.
Queries related. Yes, ma'am.
Continue. Sorry.
Okay, ma'am. Just a minute. All queries related to the session shall be answered during the Q&A round at the end of the session. Participants may type their queries in the chat box. Now, I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Arathi and would request her to make her presentation on the topic today. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. At the outset, let me thank Vicky and CPAM for inviting me to the program. And today, the topic I have taken up for discussion today is on Internet of Things and patents. Now, I believe you already had sessions on patents, and I'm not sure if you had a specific session particularly on software and business method patents, because we will be looking into a portion of software patents in this part. Now, can we start with the first slide, please? What is the meaning of Internet of Things? IoT or Internet of Things, the terminology you might be very familiar with. It's something which is very much in use today, something that we use, the technology, and more and more inventions and innovations and R&D is happening in this field simply because...
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes?
Sorry to interrupt, but your voice is a bit low, ma'am.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Like what I was telling is Internet of Things, the terminology might be, we might be familiar with the concept of it. Even if we are not familiar with the legal or the scientific concept of it, the products are something that we actually use today quite a lot. And a lot of R&D is going on in these areas of IoT, a lot of investment, a lot of investment in terms of money and time is being pumped into for the creation of Internet of Things or technology which fall under the category of IoT, because of the way they make our lives more comfortable, the way it is impacting us. Particularly, a lot of it is happening in the West, and India, we are also picking up the domestic innovation that is happening in India. I'm not sure to what extent it is happening, but the larger players are very strongly available in India also. And they have, particularly in Delhi, you have Ericsson and Qualcomm, and they have their R&D units. And they have also these facilities which is open to public to see their R&D. So Internet of Things is something which is very interesting from a consumer point of view because of the products that we use today, and also from a legal point of view, the implications, particularly patent, which has on it. Now, when we are talking about Internet of Things, it simply or it originally meant everything that is connected to the internet. Every kind of machinery or instrument that could be connected to internet and could interact within the internet, what you say, connectivity area, was initially understood as Internet of Things. But more and more, when we are talking today about Internet of Things, we are talking about machine to machine interaction and eliminating the human component on it. Usually what we see is that machines that collect data, would you will get the data and you analyze the data. But today the technology has grown such a way that the human element can be minimal, which means accuracy will be much high when computer or any machine is able to communicate or talk to another machine, and information is being passed on to, and the information or data that is passed on to can be collected and analyzed using another machine, so you get more accurate data. So this is what today increasingly Internet of Things mean. Now the devices are from simple sensors, like where your heartbeat would be checked, or the oxygen content of your blood would be checked and monitored, or any kind of devices or sensors to check humidity. It could be an industrial unit where temperature, pressure, etc. need to be maintained, to the smartphones that we use today, where we have a lot of IoT built into it, and even the wearables. It could be Google Lens is one, the Google Glass is one, the Google Lens you have on your camera another. But the more the wearables are, like your Fitbits that you use, where it collect the data on your physical activities. So these are products that we very commonly use today, and its implication on the patent regime is what we are looking into. Now, all what these instruments or these devices do is they are basically into the business of collecting and capturing data. They have multiple mechanisms of capturing data. Most of it are sensors. Some are motion sensors, some are other factors that can be sensed, like humidity and temperature. Some are motion sensors. When you walk, you run, when you cycle, they pick up what is the kind of activity that you are doing. And once all these activities generate data, and this data is collected and it's transmitted via internet to other devices, and these devices do the analysis part of what is the rate, the kind of activity that you do, how much is needed for you to maintain your BMI, how much of sleep is required for you to maintain your health, what is the kind of food that you need to take, the kind of water that, or the amount of water that you need to take. So health related I'm talking about. It's the same with industries. You have data collected over our systems, the machines we use collect and transmit data, which will help, if it's a business kind of thing, it helps the entrepreneur to make more informed decision. It could be used on industries as to how things has to be done. So Internet of Things is something which is very common, though the terminology might not be very common and very familiar to us. The products are something that we very, very popularly use today. Can we move on to the next slide? Now, when we look into the uses of it, there are a lot of uses for Internet of Things, or technologies that are related to Internet of Things. I put up the consumer application first because that is the one which we are most familiar with. You have the concept of whole smart homes, where all your equipments in your home can be connected over internet and they can be interconnected to each other. There are mechanisms of fridge, your AC being connected to your phone, your fridge, the intelligent fridge, the ones that are under R&D now, are able to track, for example, the amount of milk that is there in your fridge, and when it falls a particular rate, or the quantity falls, it might, or it will intimate you via your mobile that you are running short of milk, so that you can buy milk as you require. So it makes human life very comfortable in that sense. Similarly, there are a lot of devices which provide assistance to people, particularly elderly and disabled. For example, hearing advanced hearing aids is one where it provides you with assistance. It might be connected to your mobile phone, so if you have speech softwares which help assist speech, so your reading problem can be overcome. So there are multiple technologies that are evolving to make human life more and more comfortable. So at your home, you have multiple of these technologies that makes it happen today. At an organizational level, a lot of organizations do use it. Particularly, you have something called Internet of Medical Things, IOMT, where it's a specific area of IoT itself, where the whole emphasis is on the medical product. So you have prostrates, you have pacemakers, you have Fitbits, you have very advanced hearing aids, you have other aids like you have sophisticated lenses, glasses, which will enlarge the image. So if you have low visibility, your visibility could be enhanced. So there are multiple organizations using IoT. Same is the case with transportation and vehicular communication, where if your vehicle is connected to internet, so you know the speed, you know the how your the whole transportation, the whole vehicle is functioning as to how its internal items are working, how the tires are in good shape or not, to what extent it can move around. And then you have the newer kind of technology of self-driving vehicles, where you don't need a human driver to be driving it. It connects itself with automatically its surroundings, where you need to have internet connected everywhere, and with the opposite vehicles coming in, so they track each other's movement, and that's how you have the driving part happening. So you don't actually require humans. So it's machine to machine interaction at its highest level. You have same kind of application at industrial level, where data is sent into different industry to particularly on how usage of products happen, which means you can conserve the products. It's the same with infrastructure application. The concept of smart cities are very much alive and happening in today's world. You have particularly most Western systems having put sensors in what you call, particularly in their water flow system, the water tanks and the pipes, so that you can track if there is a break and there's a leakage of water, if the water pressure is too low, if the contamination is too high. So you can monitor multiple elements in the water that is being transmitted throughout this your city, and the consequences you can minimize on the wastage. It happens a lot with water, because water is increasingly becoming a very precious commodity, and we as a civilization is moving in a direction where there is minimal water available, minimal fresh water available. So a lot of cities are very conscious as to how they manage water resources, and they want to minimize it and use IoT as a mechanism to minimize this. So smart cities, again, you have surveillance of CCTV, it posts lights, etc., and capturing data and information, so that one way is crimes can be very low, the other is monitoring can be very high. Particularly if you are a country which is very sensitive to terrorist attacks, it becomes very easy to capture data. I'm not sure if any of you have seen the series called Person of Interest, where it shows a very sophisticated technology of capturing data through machines. It's again a machine to machine interaction, no human interface, for the purpose of identifying possible terror attacks. So you see these technologies very much in action today. And again, at the military level, there is a lot of usage for this. One of the military uses is what I said, the state using it to find out terrorist activities. Another is using it for compact, because machine-machine interaction, human casualties would be minimal. So there are a lot of uses at every level. You look at this from state's point of view or the consumer's point of view. there is quite a lot of usage of what we today call as Internet of Things, or the technology that falls under the category of Internet of Things, where you maximize machine to machine interaction. So it's on this premises we are going to look how these technology can be protected within the IP regime. Can we move on to the next slide? Now, undoubtedly, all these are products or processes. Basically, they are inventions. And because they are inventions, there are very few methods of IP which can actually capture the whole invention. We have trade secrets on one side, where you might be able to protect the invention and the information as such. And but not a very what you say projected and promoted kind of IP because of its inherent problems. And the most sought after kind of intellectual property for the protection of technology that's related to Internet of Things is undoubtedly patents. And when we are talking about patents, and in India, we have certain conditions that has been laid down, and it's only on satisfying of all those conditions will a patent be granted. Now, these conditions, there are certain conditions which are we call as standards or patentability, and you have what is the kind of invention that can be protected, which is called patent eligible invention or patent eligibility, and we have certain procedural requirements also. Now, the patent standards or the patentability are three as far as not just India, globally, when you look into TRIPS also it's the same. So we have the first step, the first condition of it being novelty, that it has to be new. And as far as India is concerned, the notion of novelty is one of global novelty, that is, the invention has to be new, or which means it is not anticipated by prior publication or prior use anywhere in the world. So that is the standard of novelty we follow. And coming to inventive step, the law requires that there has to be a technical advancement or an economic significance or both, and that the invention should not be obvious to a person skilled in the art. Now, this person skilled in the art becomes very tricky to identify whether an invention would get a patent or not, because he is the one who, or he is a fiction, legal fiction of just like a reasonable prudent man. A person skilled in the art is also a legal fiction which the law uses to identify what inventions need to be given patent or not. And the third standard is capable of industrial application, where the invention need to have some kind of use in the industry or can be made in an industrial process. So those are the standards. I'm not going into depth because I believe that you have already covered it in your earlier lectures. And again, you have the procedural requirement, which says that there should be an enabling disclosure. The enabling disclosure should be in such a fashion that a person skilled in the art, it should be in such a way so as to enable a person skilled in the art to actually manufacture the said product, and while disclosing the best method of performing should be, or the best known method of performing should be disclosed. So disclosure is actually a procedural requirement. The first three are standards. Now, apart from this, there is a what is called the patent eligible subject matter or patent eligibility. Can we move on to the next slide? Where all these inventions that we are talking of, IoT based or Internet of Things based, they all run with the help of softwares. They are connected to the software that is in link with the hardware, and it's the software that help these hardware communicate or talk to one another. Now, the question essentially becomes one of protection, where you have a software linked to a hardware, and it is always not found that the hardware is very novel. The hardware might be something that we are already familiar with. For example, fridge is a hardware that we are familiar with, but then you make substantial modifications where the fridge is attached with softwares so that it can communicate over internet with other hardware like your mobile phone, and they talk to each other or they communicate with each other. So it's always the hardware need not be novel, but it's the novel use of a software. It's sometimes a novel software also. So the question becomes, how will we protect this? It's the whole technology that needs to be protected, and how will we do this? So this essentially raises the question of protection of computer softwares. And the basic understanding we have under international IP regime is that software shall be a subject matter of copyright protection. When you look into Article 9 of the TRIPS, it says that software, computer programs and computer databases shall be something which are protected as literary and artistic work within the Berne regime. So the international understanding has been that it will be protected under TRIPS. Though even prior to that, right from 1960s onwards, if you look into the history of it, we can see that there has been attempt to protect it otherwise. For example, in 1979, we have this European, the English Whitford Committee looking on how to protect computer programs. In 1978, you have the Contour report in US talking about how to protect it. But even prior to that, in 1971, we have under the WIPO an advisory group of governmental experts saying that computer programs should be protected as sui generis system. They identified that computer programs, it is possible to be protected under copyright, under patent, or under trade secret. They are the available three forms of IP, but it was recommended that we opt a sui generis system. But all this was toppled, probably because Contour report came out subsequently, and US and England, which were the major countries, followed by Europe, they all started protecting computer programs as copyrightable subject matter majorly. And now TRIPS comes up and says that computer programs can be protected as copyrightable subject matter. So when we come into India, when we were making the new law, the 1970 Act, which was being amended to satisfy the patent needs. So the amendments took place in 1999, 2002, and 2005. So that was the time when this computer technology, the programs, the softwares were at its boom. Internet has not been invented till then, so IoT did not come into place. But there had been a lot of inventions even then which were or which could fall under the category of computer related inventions, particularly happening in the Western countries, particularly US. So it was the realization that certain inventions could be linked with computer programs that led to the question of, is copyright the sole mechanism for the protection of computer programs? And firstly, there was this provision introduced in 2002, and it's 3K, section 3, talking about excluded subject matter or what are not inventions. And it uses the language, this was the initial language, subsequently amended because of the JPC. So there was a complete ban saying that a mathematical or a business method or a computer or algorithm cannot be patented. So there was, the understanding was there was an absolute ban on patenting any kind of computer program, or no computer program should come within the purview of a patent. That was the initial understanding in 2002. The bill was sent to the Joint Parliamentary Committee, and the Joint Parliamentary Committee is the entity that added the term per se to this provision of 3K. So as we know it today, it reads as a mathematical or business method or a computer program per se or algorithm. The understanding was that there could be, the technology was just developing then, so there could be some kind of inventions which might have a software as its part and still capable of getting a patent. So what was intended was a program by itself, an independently standing program, shall not be patentable. But if the program is attached with another invention and that invention is capable of getting a patent, then solely the presence of this software should not make the invention per se excluding from patent regime. So that was the logic of the Joint Parliamentary Committee when they suggested to add the terminology per se to section 3K. And today that is the language that we have, that computer program per se is not patentable. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So what we have today is what is generally called as computer related inventions, or it's commonly called as CRI. Now, the understanding is that if now the first clarification regarding this, the 2011 patent manual. Now, keep in mind the manual is not a binding part of the law. It's only a working guideline for the people within the patent office, but it helps us to understand what the patent office, or in practice what the patent system is anticipating within its framework. Now it said that if claims are directed as computer programs products, it shall not be entertained. But then, just because it has a computer program, it does not mean that it should not be examined further. It needs to be examined further and seen whether it is only a computer program, or is it computer program which is in addition to something which is patentable. So that was a very vague kind of manual that was available in 2001. Subsequently, it was realized that certain kinds of technology need specific guidelines. It's not just computer related inventions. In India, we have specific guidelines for pharmaceuticals. We have specific guidelines for biotechnology related inventions. So the patent office started to come out with these specific guidelines to identify what exactly can be protected within the patent regime. Now, keep in mind, all those are drafts, because each time a draft came out, there was opposition or some kind of resistance, particularly from the industry. Now, when the 2013 draft came out, the language in the draft said that what could not be patented as computer related inventions. It was all negative. So there was still no clarity as to what can be patented as a computer related invention. That was the reason why the 2013 draft was abandoned and the 2015 draft came. And the 2015 draft was very loosely worded. It said, so the language gave the impression that everything with a computer program might get a patent. So for the 2015 guideline, there was huge opposition, not from the industry, but from the civil society organizations, saying that this guidelines was going against what the Patent Act was telling. So the Patent Office came up with a new guideline in 2016. And the 2016 guideline was very restrictive compared to the 2015 one. And it said that only if there is a new hardware and it has a software aligned with the new hardware, then when the hardware gets patented, the software will also get patented. And this was opposed highly by the industry. 2016 is the time when IoT started coming into picture. Internet of Things, the technology that are called IoT, started coming into the forefront. And there was a real apprehension that if you say that the hardware has to be novel, it has to be new, that was a problem, because most of the hardware were not that new. You had, for example, there are machines particularly used in the medical industry where your the information from your blood or your vitals would be taken and it would be analyzed by the computer. The machine that captures it, there are similar machines available. So the requirement that it had to be a novel hardware was posing a huge problem for the industry, particularly because they thought that the law was trying to control the natural growth of the technology, because the technology, or the way in which the technology was growing, was using already known machinery itself, through which it can be modified so that it could connect itself to internet and then relate to other machines. So that was the large objection against the 2016 guideline. And can we move on to the next slide? leading to the 2017 guidelines. This is the guidelines that is in effect now. It's not a draft. The draft has been accepted, and the patent manual also has been amended in 2019. So we have a new patent manual which also refers to this 2017 guidelines. Now, what the 2017 guideline says that the focus should be what is the invention. You need not look whether it has a software portion attached to it. That need not be bothered about. It might have a lot of invention that come up for patenting today has softwares attached to it. So you don't have to take this stand that there is a software, hence not patentable. What you need to look into is what is the underlying invention? What is it trying to do? And if the invention is trying to do something which is novel and inventive and has utility, the mere fact, the mere presence of a software does not defeat its patentability. But on the other hand, if the claim is specifically provided in such a way that it is a method or a process or an apparatus device, which is a computer program or something which is merely computer readable, then which means you are drafting the claim in such a way that one of your claim is to protect the software alone, a standalone software, then such a claim cannot stand. But what has to be looked in the conjoined reading today is whether this software together with the hardware is providing a technical nature, is that of a technical nature which involves a technical advancement. That is, there is an inventive step involved. Then such inventions, though they have softwares attached with it, again, the novel hardware requirement has been done away. So the hardware need not be new, but yet the existing hardware with the way in which the software interacts with it, put together, they together give a technical nature and there is a technical advancement, then the whole thing, including the software, is eligible for a patent protection. So that is what the 2017 guidelines say. Can we move forward? And again, the guideline specifically states that if any claim, it's not the invention as a whole, but if you have specific claims and the claim is directed solely for a computer program, then such claims shall not be permitted to stand. So if you have a claim in which through that claim you are claiming solely for the software, your claim will not stand. You will not get a patent for that. You will be actually asked to delete that claim. But your invention as such might be patentable. Can we move forward? Now, the cases that have come up majorly are the ones where patent has been denied and there was a dispute raised. But if you look into the patent office website, you can see quite a lot of patents have been given. The first one, that's a comparatively older case, and it was on how to do a search function. And it was held actually to be a business method, how to find out something. And business methods are absolutely not patentable. So even if you are using a software, if it amounts only to a business method, then it's not patentable. There must be a technological advancement that happened, not simply a way of how to do a business. In Ericsson versus Intex also, the code was very clear that there should be a technical advancement or a technical application to the software. And it's not the software that can be patented. It's the technical application of the software that happens through its hardware that is protectable under patent regime. Can we move forward? This case is very interesting. Firstly, keep in mind the technology is very old. The patent was filed in around 2000, and this patent, even if granted, would expire by this or would have expired by September 2020. So even in July 2020, it was still under litigation. So the technology again is a web search. So because it was a search engine of that sense, there was serious consideration whether it is eligible for patent, and the patent office and the IPAB has said that patent is not possible. It went on appeal to Delhi High Court, and the Delhi High Court reverted the matter to IPAB to decide. But what is interesting is, and IPAB did not give a patent, okay? But what is interesting is some of the observations that the Delhi High Court made, and this Delhi High Court decision came either in 2019 or in 2020, early 2020. And again, this is the time when you have in fact a lot of internet based or IoT based technology available and quite in use, particularly or a lot of consumer products. And the Delhi High Court was very conscious to say that there are a lot of inventions that are computer based or computer based inventions based on computer programs, and the approach of the law that the mere presence of a computer program will defeat the whole patentability of the invention. That approach should, the patent office should do away with that approach and understand the fact that it's only the computer program per se, that standalone computer program, which is meant to be outside the patentability regime, which means that most of these technologies which bring in technical advancement using a computer software might be eligible for patent, and it is in the best interest of the society, in the society, as well as the stakeholders, the R&D, the entrepreneurs who are investing quite a lot and bringing up of all these inventions and products which are quite consumer friendly on the one side and making consumer life very comfortable. And there was this observation by the court that it needs to be recognized and protected. I think that was the last slide. So legally, what we stand or where we see is the patent office still having quite some hesitation because of the way or a lack of understanding of how this computer program per se needs to be kept out of the patent regime, and still how inventions which bring in technical advancements are protected within the patent regime. And from the industry point of view, it becomes very essential to give patents for these, because they are not only that their market is very high, they're very competitive products coming out of very high use and capturing market like any. The Fitbits that you see today, if you look at the price range, you have something like from 6,000 to 18,000 to 20 odd thousand. So the price range is very different based on the features that they are able to give you, and the features essentially are the kind of data that they are able to capture, analyze, and give you the outcome. So the more, if you have to invest, an entrepreneur, if they have to invest more and more, it becomes essential that these technologies get the adequate level of protection that they ought to get to maintain that market legally, so that they get good returns out of it. So in that sense, patent law needs to be really sensitive to the IoT technology and the inventions that are internet based. So with that, I'll wrap up the talk and I'm open for questions.
Thank you so much for such an insightful session, ma'am. Now I proceed to Q&A session. If anyone from the audience has any question, please type the same in the chat box and we'll put the same to the speaker. Ma'am, there is a question from a participant.
Please, go ahead.
Ma'am, the question is, what are the challenges revolving the claim scope when it comes to patenting Internet of Things?
Now, the problem is while lawyers are drafting the claims, we should be very clear as to how the language that is used. Because in any of the claim, if the language used shows that you are trying to capture a computer program, or it is a product on that program, then you have the problem. The patent office actually saying that such claims are not possible within the patent regime. So while drafting the patent, there should be um a genuine effort made to ensure that it's drafted in such a way that what is projected is the technical effect of the software, and how that technical effect is an improvement over the existing knowledge, showing that it's novel as well as inventive. So the emphasis should be on the fact of the technical effect that is it is able to produce than the capturing of that software. It's the way in which the claim needs to be drafted. So if you draft it, because if you can go through the slides, or if you go through the CRI guidelines, they have given certain claims, usually which they find in the patent office, claiming that it is a program itself, or it is a product of a program without the technical effect being shown. So such claims, drafting of such claims is what defeats or leading to rejection of that particular claim. Yes.
Absolutely, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question from a participant is, what is joint infringement in IoT patents and how can it be avoided?
Now, joint infringement happens when there are multiple parties who are into infringement. So what happens is, when you are talking about IoT, there might be multiple products or multiple players who hold this patent. The manufacturer might be taking license from multiple parties. For example, a lot of R&D is done by companies like Qualcomm and Motorola, but Motorola is not much into manufacture of products. They're very much into R&D. Qualcomm is also the same. So what happens is, they manufacture, they get the patent over these technologies, and they would be licensing it to multiple people. So the persons who are actually manufacturing the products are licensees of these patent. So when you have to manufacture, if you are an infringer of the product, you want to manufacture, still the manufacture might happen in pieces, where you at the end you fuse the multiple pieces together to form the product that that we consumers buy. So there is a possibility that one product that a consumer buy might be manufactured, its units might be manufactured by multiple people, and some of it could be infringing or without the license of the right holders. Some of it could be, you have also the problem of standard essential patents coming in, because some of them might be standards, and then there might be a refusal which leads to a competition issue of the standard essential patent not being governed. But usually, because in one product you could have multiple manufacturers, you might see a situation where they end up with a joint infringement suit, because at the end the consumer gets the product from multiple people. So that's how it happens. And to avoid this, take the appropriate license from the appropriate persons. And you have the problem of getting license, because particularly for smaller companies, because the larger companies, Qualcomm and the larger companies, the other companies might also be having R&D unit, and they might have certain kind of arrangements of sharing R&D. So license might be easier between them. But if one is a very small player and the other is a large player like Qualcomm, and Qualcomm do not have any kind of R&D benefit from the small company, they might not be very much interested in giving a license to a smaller company also. So you might have problems of competition law also coming up. But then the only right way to do it is get an appropriate license and do it. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we have received another question from a participant.
Yes.
Do SEP and FRAND issues exist in IoT patents? Whether there are any guidelines set up by SSOs when licensing IoT patents?
No, I am not familiar with guidelines for IoT things yet. because the bigger issues regarding front and standard essential patent that we see today are where you have standard setting organization which are not yet Internet of Things. We have with our phone, we have with our laptop. So they are the bigger markets as far as India is concerned. So we have evolved only to that stage in formation of guidelines. What we do is we let the technology and the market grow naturally and see to what extent or which way it's moving. Only if it is moving in a totally anti-competitive way or totally against the interest of the consumer, you want the organization to step up and regulate it. If the industry is able to manage it without an external interference, that is the best way of growth. So regarding IoT, we are just seeing the way in which products are coming out, because a lot of these products are mostly in R&D in India. A lot of products are not into Indian markets, particularly consumables. And it's when a lot of consumables come up, we have this problem, because the small players want to come in. And only when the small players want to come in, we have this huge problem of standard essential patent. If they are equally big, they resolve it among themselves. That's what we see, particularly with the telecommunication industry. Yes.
Yes, ma'am, exactly. Do we have any more questions from the participants? I guess there are no more questions.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
for
you so much for. Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
Yeah, thank you for giving me this chance. It was a good experience for me also. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for addressing the questions, ma'am. It was a wonderful session and it was wonderful having you in today's session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for being a part of day 9 session 2 of the virtual school on IP. We now conclude this session.